Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Sunday Career Success. Today, we're going to be talking about ways to get hired. And that's correct. There's also a live chat today. So if you are watching this and you can see the live chat, just type in your questions, say who you are. And if you're very lucky, you might even get me mentioning and acknowledging that you're here. That's the reward of a lifetime, the reward for many years of service. A dream come true, really. So today we're going to be talking about several different ways of getting hired. We're going to start with applying for jobs on the internet, the most basic default thing that a lot of people do. Doesn't work that great, but it's the most obvious thing to do. We're going to talk about applying for jobs through connecting to HR companies, staffing firms, placement firms, recruiters, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about job fairs. Okay, these are very common, not for sort of higher level jobs, but for maybe more entry level jobs coming right out of university, right out of college, that kind of thing. And then we're going to cover, you guys guessed it, we're going to cover the hidden job market and the various ways of tapping the hidden job market, because as many of us know, most jobs out there are actually not posted. It's something like 70% minimum, usually more than that, 70 or 80% of all the actual jobs that exist are not posted. So the question is, how can you discover those and then get them? Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Now, within the hidden job market, there are several different methods to use. I'm going to cover a few. I mean, there's tons. There's literally tons. But the biggest one, of course, is networking, how to get jobs through networking. And then sort of ramping it up a little, we're going to talk a little bit about informational interviews as a means to get a job. We're going to talk about temporary jobs, temp jobs. We're going to talk about applying for a job in person. Okay, and this one actually, contrary to what some people believe, this is something you could do at a very high level and a very low level too. You could walk into a store and have your resume in hand and apply for a job there. We're going to talk about volunteering as a vector, as a way to get a job. Not that you want to do volunteering as its own thing necessarily, because it doesn't pay any money typically, but as a vehicle to get yourself a job. We're going to talk about that. And finally, we're going to talk about growth opportunities. This is a slightly lesser known vector to get a job. It's usually more for higher level jobs, executive type jobs, that kind of thing, or professionals. But it's still worth talking about, and we're going to cover that today. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about. Is this a complete list? No, there's all kinds of new and exciting things you can do in terms of how to discover jobs and how to put yourself forth as a candidate to get the job. So we're going to cover those. I have done live streams. I've done informational videos over on my other channel about all of these. So if you are interested in any one of these specifically, you can either ask questions or you can go over to my main channel, which is called The Company's Expert, and watch some of the videos I have there on specific topics. We're also going to cover some of the sort of ancillary things you need to get a job. Resume being the most obvious. Okay, resume. We're going to talk about LinkedIn profiles and possibly profiles on other social networks like Facebook. And we're going to even talk today about business cards, something I haven't really touched on too much that is very important, especially if you are a professional or you are a manager at any level. And finally, we're going to do a little bit of psychology and deal with some of the mentalities and moods and things that occur when you're going about a job search and as it relates to each of these possible ways of getting a job. So stick around for that. Now, just some public service announcements to start off here. I want to give a shout out to everybody on my Facebook group. I've got a Facebook group called Get Hired, The Company's Expert. There's a link in the description. So we've got something like 230 people in there, so that's great. Hopefully some of those people will be here today tuning in. And if you want to connect with other like-minded people and share tips and that kind of stuff about careers and getting a job, that's one place to go. Excellent. Okay, so I guess we're going to jump right in. So, ways to get hired. Now, it's interesting because when a lot of people are confronted with, having to find a job. A lot of times it's this is a situation that comes on suddenly, and you don't have a ton of preparation for it. You might not have been thinking about this for a while. And let's face it, sometimes this is not the funnest thing to dwell on, right? We don't enjoy dwelling on the fact that our employment might not be stable and secure, and we might have to make changes. That's normal. That's human nature to kind of shy away from thinking about that kind of stuff and just hope that it doesn't happen. And I'm not going to judge people too harshly for not having a super detailed plan in place all the time, because sometimes life is too short and you got other things to do. However, this stuff really isn't the big deal that a lot of people fear it is. There's actually many ways of doing this, and most people figure it out as they go along, and everyone does it a slightly different way. Okay, so just because you don't do exactly the same thing as what you see other people doing, or what you might, be given in advice, that's okay. Now, having said that, there are resources you can use, but you're perfectly normal, and everyone puts their own twist on this process. Okay, so I'm here to give you some ideas. Now, let's start with the most obvious vehicle that people use to get a job. Okay, they apply for a job on the internet. Now, you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. You've seen job postings online, little banner ads and things like this on social networking and other websites, okay? And they're advertising jobs. Anybody who's ever been on LinkedIn, which is sort of the Facebook of business and hiring, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's job ads all over the place on there. And this is a very obvious way to get a job. The only problem is that a lot of times it's not the best way by far. It's a very hard and a very bad way of getting a job. Usually, not always, but usually, because since it is so easy to apply for a job, many people do. And as a result, for any posted job, the recruiter posting the job typically receives literally hundreds of applicants. Okay, there's hundreds of people that apply for the job. And generally, the easier it is to apply, the more applicants you get. So this is a fact. Okay, now, if you think about it, statistically, if 100 people apply for a job and you're one of them, statistically, you have a 1% chance of getting that job. Okay, that's just numbers. That's probability. Okay, obviously there's other factors, but right off the get-go, okay, you're dealing with those kinds of odds. Okay, so what typically happens is a lot of people apply for online jobs, and then they are surprised and disappointed to find that they don't get responses. This is very, very typical. And if this has happened to you, you are not alone. This is what most people, the vast majority of people, experience. Okay? There are also some weird stuff going on with online job posts. I've seen and I've heard stories of, companies that just keep posting the same job over and over and over and over again. So even though it's one job posting and you may get 100 applicants for it, the odds of getting the job are less than 1% because unbeknownst to you, they've posted that job once a week for the last 8 weeks. And so that's, you're up against 800 people. There's also other things going on too. Sometimes companies post a job and they do that to go through the motions because perhaps they have an internal candidate in mind, someone that's already working at the company they want to promote upwards or sideways into the job. But technically, it's against the company policy to do that. It might be against some employment standards, depending on where this is. To do that, they have to post the job publicly so that it is fair and it is it's open and transparent. Okay. Now, what that means is that, okay, they post it, but are they really looking very closely at the applicants that apply that they don't know? No, they're looking just to see if there's anyone radically more qualified to say that they've canvassed it in a fair way. So you do sometimes get that. Okay, not all the time, but sometimes. So as a result, all these things contribute to making applying for jobs online a process where you could send out literally 1,000 applications and not get a response. Usually you get a response after a couple hundred, but you can go more without getting a response. Now, if this has happened to you, don't worry too much, because this is a typical experience, and you're just up against some pretty bad odds. But the good news is that there are a lot of alternatives. A lot of them are much more promising, and they yield not only better chance of success, but better quality jobs at the end of it. Okay? So have some heart, because we're going to talk about those. Now, that's kind of the first thing. In order to apply for that, obviously you need a resume. And you also need to, unfortunately, it seems you need to learn a few tips and tricks about how to apply for online jobs. And that is that there's some technical things that you might have to do. Number one is, generally speaking, when people post a job online, when recruiters post a job, what they're looking for is they're looking for someone to apply for the job and send them a resume that is essentially a reflection of the job posting. Okay, so if the job posting has these 10 requirements, they want to see a resume that says those 10 things. They want a perfect fit. Okay, they are not interested in looking at candidates that have some of the requirements. They're looking for people that have all of the requirements. And then on top of that, you got to do things like when you send in your resume or your cover letter or whatever you're sending in your application, in order to communicate that you have the requirements that they're looking for, you have to use their words. Okay. So, for example, let's say you've used, let's say you've used Microsoft Word before, okay? And one of the requirements of the job is that, candidate must be experienced using Microsoft Word. Okay, that's what it says. Now, when you respond, if you say, oh, I have experience using Microsoft Office, that's not good enough, because technically what you're doing is you're assuming that they know that Microsoft Word is part of Microsoft Office. Okay, now a lot of people would make that connection, but with a recruiter, okay, they don't necessarily make those connections. So you have to spell it out. So we all know that if you're experienced in Microsoft Office, that probably means you're experienced in Microsoft Word. However, if you say that on your application will probably not be accepted and move to the next stage of the process, which is maybe a job interview. Okay. They don't interpret what you say. You have to say literally that you have exactly what they're looking for. Let's say you said you have experience using MS Word. Well, once again, MS Word, you're assuming they understand that means Microsoft Word. So that might not work either, and you might not get selected for an interview, and you won't understand why. So, I mean, I'm using a silly example to illustrate the concept, but this is something you have to do. So when you're applying for jobs online, you have to do things like this, and you can search on Google, like all the little tips and tricks, but it requires a bit of this stuff. And personally, I wouldn't recommend trying to become an expert in doing this, because at the end of the day, it's quite challenging to get a good job coming in through this channel, through responding to internet job posts. Okay, let's talk about the second alternative, or second method of how to get a job, how to get hired. Okay, and that is recruitment companies. There are a lot of recruitment companies. These are HR companies that specialize in recruitment and selection. And for those who don't know, recruitment means you try and find lots of potential candidates, and selection means you try and filter down your pool of potential candidates down to one person that gets the job. They get selected. Okay, so recruitment and selection. So there's many independent companies that do this, and often they work as brokers. They work as what we used to call middlemen, right? People that hire on behalf of another company. Okay, so IBM is looking for programmers. Maybe IBM doesn't have their own HR department. I'm pretty sure they would, but as an example, they would hire an independent local recruitment company to try and find candidates locally that would fit that job. So the company that's actually putting out the job ad is the recruitment company, is the HR company. Okay. Now what you can do is you can follow these companies on Twitter. You can go to their websites. You can even go to job aggregators that look at those companies. You can follow them on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms. And the other great thing is that these recruitment companies, oftentimes they specialize in one particular area. So if you are an engineer looking for a job and there's a local recruitment company in your city, okay, that specializes in engineering jobs, they specialize in hiring or doing recruitment and selection for engineering type job positions for engineering companies, might be a good thing to follow them on Twitter or to go to their website and see what listings they have. Okay. It might be a good idea to connect to the recruiters who work at that company over LinkedIn and Facebook and things like this. Probably LinkedIn. LinkedIn's usually the gold standard for business type social networking, at least when it comes to hiring. There are others, but LinkedIn's the big one at the moment. Okay, so what you can do is you can go and you can follow all those sites so that whenever one of those recruiting companies posts a job and says, hey, we're looking in your hometown for something in your industry, it's a mechanical engineering job for an engineering company that's, half an hour away from your house or your apartment or where you're staying, it might be a good idea to become aware of this as soon as it's posted. Then you can apply for it. You can also maybe get a dialogue with the recruiter and just ask them a couple of quick questions or give them a call and just say, hi, I see that you posted this, I have this. Would it make sense for me to apply for this? Is that kind of what you're looking for, or is it kind of something else? Just so you can get a dialogue together. That's usually very useful. And also you become somebody real to them. You're not just a resume with a name on top. You're an actual person. So that sometimes helps. They can give you tips, potentially. Okay, so that's a second channel. Okay, so you got your number one is to apply for jobs on the internet. Number two is to follow and check out local HR companies, especially ones that do recruitment. Some of them call themselves staffing companies, which is a little bit different. It's more mid-level and lower level of recruiting, generally speaking, as opposed to executive recruiting, which is like for executives and general manager up, that kind of type of recruiting. Okay, obviously those vary by location, but generally speaking, you got executive recruiters and you got staffing companies. Okay, so something to check out. And I've done videos on my own regular channel on how to discover who these companies are. If you want to know, okay, I'm in this city, who are the recruiting companies around me and that I should be following? Or who are the employers for that matter? I've done videos on that, so check those out. Very simple to do. Okay. Number 3, job fairs. Job fairs. This is another channel you can use to connect to employers and discover jobs and put your name forward for jobs so you can get hired. Now, I am not, full disclosure, I'm not a super amazing expert on job fairs. Generally, these are for lower level positions. I kind of deal with more upper level positions. But they are a channel. Okay. Now, if you want to discover job fairs, it starts with a Google search. It starts with looking at if you're a part of like an educational institution, like a university or college or something like that, or high school. Potentially, yes, you can discover these events through the school. But if you get on Google and you say like job fair and you do a search in your location, okay, go to Google Maps, go to your city, do a search, and then, you're confining your search to that city. And you can even see geographically where they are when they pop up in the results. Okay, you go there, and the idea is that all the companies who generally are bulk employers, so they employ multiple people at once, okay? Every year they hire, 20 or 30 new graduates or something like that. they usually go to the job fair and have a booth at the job fair. And then you show up at the job fair with a stack of resumes, business cards, that kind of thing, looking, dressed up a little, looking professional, being very polite, right? And then you connect with these people. You wander up to the booth, you say, hi, what's going on with your company? Because the representative of the company will be there. And a good way to have a conversation is just hey, so what's going on with your company? What's the latest? And they'll probably say, oh, well, we're expanding here and we're developing this and we're doing this. You're like, oh, okay. So are you looking for people to help you with that? That kind of thing. And they say, yeah, we're looking for, we hire this many accountants and engineers and salespeople and every year. So that's what we're looking for. And you're like, oh, great. Well, here's my card. Here's my resume. Would I give those to you or do I have to go somewhere to apply for the jobs? How would I do that? And they'll tell you. Okay, so you go down to the job fair, you wander around, you check out all the companies, and then basically you say, what's going on? And are there any opportunities? And how would I apply for those opportunities? And then they will tell you. So that's the deal. And the goal with a lot of this stuff, anytime there's personal interaction, right? Everybody loves personal interaction like this, right? Like you're having with me, very, very personal. You can see my beautiful smiling face, right? Is to be likable. Try and be as likable as you can, right? Very important thing. We're going to talk more about that later. Okay, so we've got basically three channels so far, three methods. We've talked about internet job ads, we've talked about HR companies, and we've talked about job fairs. Okay, so these are three of the bigger, more obvious channels for people to go over to find a job. These are generally going to be looking for jobs that are posted publicly, jobs that are discoverable publicly. Okay, so they've been posted up. Whether somebody's put a poster up on the wall or they've put a job posting on the internet, you can discover them with a search. Okay, these are discoverable jobs, posted jobs. Now, as I hinted at the very beginning, most jobs are not posted. So all the jobs that we're talking about here are something like 20%. These are only 20% of the jobs that are actually out there. There's a lot more jobs out there. What usually happens is that hiring managers, people that are managers in companies or organizations, okay, they have the power to hire people. Okay, usually what happens is that they think to themselves, I really need to get another person in the sales department, or I really need to hire another engineer. I got to get around to doing that. They want to hire someone. They might have kind of an idea of the type of person they're looking for, but just having a desire to hire someone doesn't make that job discoverable, right? Now imagine if you walked up to that person right at that moment when they realize they need to hire an engineer, and let's pretend you're an engineer, and you said, hi, I'm an engineer. I have skills in this. I'm an expert at this. I solve this kind of problem, and I'm looking for my next job. If you ever have a need for someone who can do those things, give me a call. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. Here's my LinkedIn profile. Here's a copy of my resume. I hope to hear from you. Thank you very much. Right? Now imagine if you walked up and said that at that moment. What's the hiring manager going to do? Well, the hiring manager is going to think, maybe I don't have to spend a couple hours writing a job description, spend a few $100s dealing with a recruiter, getting them to post this job and having to have long phone calls with the recruiter to explain the type of person I'm looking for and make sure they understand the job description and negotiate a financial transaction for their services, and then having to sit down and look through the resumes that they send me of the candidates they think might be potential candidates, and then I don't have to sit into any job interviews that, I have to sit into multiple job interviews, and that takes hours and hours of my time, and then I got to talk about it with other people, and then finally make a selection and then deal with all that. I can avoid all of that if I just perhaps have a coffee with this person that just contacted me. and do my own job interview with them. And if they work out, great. I could save myself all that time, money, and effort. Now, some of you may be thinking, when you hear this, you might be thinking, well, in a large enterprise, you can't just do that. There are policies, there are HR policies, there is a process for how to hire somebody. You can't just sort of do what you want. And you're right. In a lot of large enterprise, that is true. It's a bit more structured. However, what you may not be aware of is that 85% of people who have jobs are not actually working in large enterprise. They're working in small to medium-sized business. Okay, so that store down the street that has 20 employees. Most people work in that environment, not at Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's, the large enterprise. And in the smaller companies, the HR policies, as with most other things, are less of them are written down, less of them are rigid. It's a bit more flexible. Okay, think of like a mom and pop shop, right? They kind of do it the way they want, and they make up the rules as they go along. As long as they're not breaking any laws, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do that. And it provides, first of all, it's a lot less work, and it provides a lot more flexibility. And it's just a different environment. You tend to, generally speaking, trust people more than if you're in a large enterprise. So that's the missing kind of piece here. So most companies, and if we were talking about, I'm just using engineers as an example. If we were talking about engineers, a lot of engineering firms are, they're smaller. You tend to get a lot of smaller, maybe 10-person companies, 20-person companies. 50-person companies are already on the big side. So this is relevant. So the hidden job market is very, very real. And I'm sure most people know this, but just in case this is new to you, this is a real thing. Okay. So imagine if you could contact that hiring manager right at that moment, and you step forward and you said, I have this, I'm looking for this. And they said, I'm just looking for that. Right. I was just thinking I need to get somebody. I've finally made up my mind. I need someone, and I know the type of person I need, and they're very similar to what you seem to have. So let's talk. Okay. Imagine if you could connect with that person at that time and say that. Well, that's what networking is, the networking method of tapping the hidden job market. Okay. At its simplest form, you broadcast and you say, hey, I'm here. I have this. I solved this problem. I'm an expert in that. I'm looking for a new job. If you happen to need someone who can do those things, let me know because I'm interested. Let's talk. Right? You broadcast that message out to your network. And your network is simply the people you are connected to. The easiest way to visualize that is the people you are connected to on social networking, like LinkedIn. Okay, if you've been spending the last couple of years, connecting to people, right? That would be a good place to start. You broadcast that out. You could either broadcast it in a post, or, which is a little bit more effective, which is to direct message each of the people, one by one. Same message, but you basically say that. So that's tapping the hidden job market. And with a lot of these things, most people won't respond. Most people won't happen to be needing that thing at this exact time. But some people will. It's a statistical probability that a few people will be. Okay. And the larger your network, if you're going to 1,000 people, if you're going to 1,500 people, on LinkedIn, I'm connected to something like 1,800 people. Usually when you broadcast this out, you get like 10 or more bites, people saying, hey, let's talk. I might have something. On a personal note, the last few jobs that I got and a lot of consulting work has been through that method. Okay, so that's networking. Okay, so that's the first and most common way to tap the hidden job market. Okay, so if this is interesting to you, I've got a few videos. There's a lot of information out there. Check it out. Okay, now let's talk about another sort of it's not super high level way of doing it, but it's sort of lower level, but it tends to be good, and that is temp jobs. temp jobs. Okay, so temping, doing casual labor jobs, things like this. A lot of times, like I'm in Canada, I'm broadcasting from Canada. In Canada, government has a lot of websites that they do temp jobs. So you can sign up and you say I'm looking for a job, and they put you on the list in the morning, and they'll call you during the day. It's like, yeah, I got a job here. They're looking for someone to move boxes or paint a house or whatever. And they go down their list, and they can be they're calling hundreds of people every day. Now, it's just a temp job. It might be for 1 or 2 days. However, that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this because oftentimes this is a way to tap the hidden job market. Those companies that are looking for casual labor, casual employees, it's not just all manual labor too, like getting your hands dirty. There's a lot of white collar stuff there too. Engineering firms do this. They hire, 18-year-old person to, photocopy blueprints, all day. They got a whole library of blueprints. They need proper scans or, something done to them that, somebody can do. It doesn't require a lot of training. It just requires a bit of precision and a few hours of work. So they hire someone casually for that. But like we've just talked about in the hidden job market, a lot of people, a lot of hiring managers have in the back of their head that they're looking for good quality employees to do something, and they haven't posted the job yet. So often what they'll do is they'll post a temp job, and the job is great because it's only for 1 or 2 days possibly. But if they get someone that they really like, it's like, hey, you're a very capable, friendly person. You do a great job. You're on time. You're a pleasure to work with. We might have something more permanent if you're interested. That happens quite often. So temp jobs are a way in to access those jobs on the hidden job network or the hidden job market. Okay, so if you haven't considered this, try it. If you're looking for a job right now, apart from looking for a job, you're not doing anything else, sign up for temp jobs, because not because you want the temp job, but because they are a way to get jobs on the hidden job market, good jobs that you could be a perfect fit for. Okay. And if you don't, you do, if you take it and it doesn't work out, you might get other things out of it too. You might be able to put it on your resume. You might technically be able to say, I have experience in this. There's other things too, but it's a great method. So if you've never done this, consider it. Okay. Let's talk about something very similar, to temp jobs. There is another method, and that's volunteering. Volunteering is a very similar principle, okay? I've done a whole live stream on volunteering. It's actually a great backdoor to getting a job. It's kind of a stealth, hidden kind of method of getting a job, because when you think volunteering, you think like, oh, I have to work for free. And that's true. Usually volunteering, that is what's involved. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about volunteering as a way to tap the hidden job market. You volunteer at a place for a week. Big deal. Now, if you're between jobs, that's not the end of the world. At least you're doing something. At the very least, you're doing something that you can add to your resume. You're also, it's a way to get letters of recommendation and references and things like this, okay? But by far most important is that it's a way to tap the hidden job market, okay? If you are a volunteer, you're on the inside of an organization. And this is a great opportunity because now you have access to the people in the organization, and you can ask to see if they are aware of any opportunities. You connect with them on LinkedIn, you send them a message, here's my pitch, right? You could send them an email. You could even talk to them in person and do the same thing. It's whatever communication style you have, right? You connect with those people and you ask them. Now they'll be more inclined to help you because they know you. And if they see you every day, yeah, there's even more of an incentive for them to help you. Okay. Now, on top of that, the other great thing about volunteering, and this is not obvious to a lot of people, but it's true. The thing about volunteering is that if somebody volunteers for something, you know that they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for something else and a more nobler reason. It's because they enjoy it, or they're good at it, or they want to help others. Okay? That's what it demonstrates. If somebody has done a job, does that prove that they are good at their job and that they are passionate about their job? No. For all you know, they did it for the money, like a lot of people do. But when someone volunteers for something, that's a signal that, they care about that, and presumably they're good at it. Okay, but that's where their passion lies. So being able to put volunteering on your resume is very important, and that's because that's what it signals. A lot of people underestimate the power of that, but that's what it signals. It demonstrates, it proves that you're passionate about that. Okay? That's the value. Now, you volunteer at a place. Everything I said about temporary jobs applies. You're on the inside. You have access to those people. You can use it for networking opportunities to discover jobs on the hidden job market. Get referrals. Okay? Also, some of those organizations will hire people that they like that have volunteered. So you put yourself forward as a candidate for that. You just make it known that, hey, I like doing this. If there was an opportunity for me to do this permanently, I'd be there. Something like that. Okay, so volunteering is also a way in. So something to consider. Now, we've talked about posted jobs. We've talked about jobs on the internet, okay, or responding to job boards, job postings. We've talked about recruitment and selection companies, okay, HR companies. We've talked about job fairs. Those are the sort of posted jobs, okay? Now, on the hidden job market so far, we've talked about networking. We've talked about temporary jobs. We've talked about volunteering. Okay, let's talk about another channel here for the hidden job market, and that is applying in person. Now, you could technically do this for posted jobs too, but where this really shines is discovering jobs in the hidden job market. And in the past, I've had multiple students that have gone out and done this, and bam, they got a job just like that. I've taught international students, people that are sort of students that come from a different country that are in my host country with, like a temporary visa, but they want to work here. And it's tough because in addition to all the challenges of finding a job, they're also international students, and it's, the odds are stacked even more against them. So there's some challenges there. But they've overcome them by doing this. And that's applying in person. When you apply for a job, how many people do it in person? Not many. Right? So if you are the one person that does, you're elevating yourself above the crowd. You may not be the most experienced candidate. You may not be the most qualified candidate, but you're the only one that the hiring manager has met. And if you're friendly and you guys got along reasonably well and you presented yourself professionally and you're polite and all of these good qualities, you're much less of a risk if they were to interview you than someone that they've never met. Someone's a name on a resume. That resume could be an entire fabrication for all they know, right? But they've met you. And, you say that you have experience in this, and it kind of shows by the questions you've asked and the things you've said. You're much less of a risk. They know what they're getting when they hire you or they ask you in for an interview. Okay, so this is the power of applying in person. Now, not only that, but it demonstrates certain things about you. Okay, number one, it demonstrates that you want this job. Okay, you're not just after money, you don't care where you work. You're demonstrating you want this job. Okay, you showed up in person. And, you could apply for 1,000 jobs online, or no, not 1,000, maybe 100 jobs online for the time it's taken you to apply for this one job in person. Okay, so it's a quality over quantity approach. And you're tapping the hidden job market. Maybe they haven't posted a job, but you show up. Let's say it's a store or a company. You walk in through the front door and you're dressed up, you look professional. And maybe you talk to a receptionist at the front desk and you say, yeah, hi, would I be able to talk to the manager that oversees the R&D department or the engineering department? And they say, yeah, sure, I'll call them. Or they say, no, I'm sorry, they're here, but they're in a meeting. Can I help you? And you say, no, that's okay. Well, listen, I'm going to leave my resume. I'm going to leave my business card. What is their name, if I can ask? And they say, oh, it's, John Smith, whatever. Okay. Would you be able to make sure that John Smith gets this? I'm going to follow up. Maybe send him with a phone call maybe tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Something like that. And then John Smith gets your resume, business card at the front desk. Say, oh, this person showed up to apply for a job or to talk to you. And then you call up and you follow up and you say, hi, yeah, John. Yeah, my name is X and I'm just following up to see if you got my resume that I dropped off at the front desk. I just wanted to say that I'm an expert at this. I can solve this problem. And if ever you're looking for that type of thing, please give me a call because I know a bit about your company and I would very much love to work for you if you were looking for someone in that capacity. Thanks very much and have a great day. Now, that makes a great impression on a hiring manager, okay? And if they're thinking of hiring somebody, right then, they'll say, you know what? Maybe I should talk to this person more because, we've been thinking of getting another person to do this. Let's check this out and see if we can hire this person. That would be a very easy way to do it. And so far, they've displayed initiative. They seem very professional. Their resume seems to, have kind of what we would look for. And I enjoyed dealing with them. It wasn't awkward. They weren't rude. There wasn't any communication issues. And these things are very important. So that's a very good way to tap the hidden job market and elevate yourself above the crowd so that if they are looking to hire somebody in a role that you could do, you've just jumped to the top of the resume pile. Okay, so obviously there's a lot more to this, but that's the basic idea, and it's a very powerful thing to do. So as I say, I've had a lot of students that have come back and said, you know what, I never thought that was an option, but I followed the thing that you said in class and I got a job. And I've had several students that have come to me time after time and said that. So I know that's helped a lot of people. Okay, so that's another alternative, applying for a job in person. It's really not as hard as everyone thinks. It's actually very simple. And, it shouldn't be nerve-wracking either because you're not asking or doing anything that's in any way inappropriate. It's all very natural. It's all very reasonable. And usually people are pleasantly surprised when they have this happen. So something to consider. Okay, now we're going to talk about the sort of two last channels I was going to talk about for getting a job. And these are a little bit more higher level. Okay, they're a little bit more complicated. The first one is informational interviews. And I'm actually doing a series right now on my other channel, the company's expert, link in description, that's talking about this in detail, going through every step of how to do this. An informational interview, if you don't know, is different from a job interview. A job interview is like, people are seeing if you're suitable to be hired. And you're seeing if they're suitable for you to work for that company. Informational interview, it's not about jobs. It's about getting information. So for example, think of somebody from the press, like a reporter or anyone like that interviews somebody who works at a company. And they want to do a story on the company. They want to ask maybe it's an executive or the CEO. They want to ask them questions about, what their company does, how is business going? What are you guys doing? What do you think of these trends or these changes that are happening to your industry right now? Where do you think it's going to go? What does the future hold? Questions like this. Okay, so essentially that's what you're doing with somebody. You might say, hey, hello, you don't know me, but maybe I'm a student or I'm someone I'm looking to switch careers. I'm looking to learn about the industry that you're in, and I know a bit about your company. I know you're a leader in that business, that industry. And I'd very much like to get your opinion on, or your answer to a few questions I have. I'm just trying to learn about it. Would you be able to spare me half an hour, where we could talk about this? Would that be okay? Something like that. And, like anything else, a lot of people won't respond, but a lot of people will. And you go down and you have a little meeting, can happen a bunch of different ways. Just think of like meeting at a Starbucks at a certain time. They get a coffee, you get a coffee, and you have a half an hour to 1 hour chat about, what's going on in that industry and that company and what this person thinks of a bunch of different aspects of it. And it helps you learn. I've done quite a few of these in my career. I've done hundreds of these. It's a really cool experience, actually. So you do this. So you meet the person, you get to learn what they do, you get to learn what they think, you get to see the type of person that they are. Are they kind of really like kind of gruff and aggressive, or are they very, very friendly and charismatic? You get to see that. And then the idea is that you don't approach this at all with the idea that you're looking for a job. That's nowhere part of this interaction. Okay. At no stage do you communicate in any way that you are looking for a job. You're just trying to get information. And that makes sense because if you are going to apply for a job, you want to make sure you're jumping into something that the situation you want to be in. Okay. So the idea is you do these informational interviews. If they go great, awesome. Then you proceed to the next step where you go away and you come back and then you say, hi, I was thinking about what you said, and I think I might be able to help out. If I have these skills, so if ever you're looking for someone with that, let me know, because I was very impressed with what you said about your company. I'd like to join you if possible. Something along those lines. And that's kind of the process. There's a lot more to it, but that's basically it. And if you had a very pleasant interaction, once again, if there's any hidden jobs there, you jump to the top of the pile because they know you, they like you, they had a very pleasant conversation, and that can lead to some stuff. I've gotten jobs through that method. I've gotten several, actually. It's a great way to do it. Usually the jobs or the work that you land tends to work out because, you didn't get it based on what it says on your resume. You got it based on getting to know, presumably, your future boss, and sort of clicking on ideas and attitudes and communication style and conversational skills and career perspectives and all that kind of stuff. You kind of connected over that. So that's kind of in alignment. Both parties agree, yeah, we'd like to work together. So that tends to result in some very high quality jobs. So that's a method. Informational interviews is a method. It's a little more complicated than other methods. Okay, there's a lot of steps to it, but it tends to produce very high quality results. Okay, and I don't know. I seem to be in a minority. I recommend that people go and do these alternate channels because I've had a lot of success with them. So it's not that I'm that special. These principles apply to everyone, not just very high executives. They apply to everyone. Okay. Now, finally, we get to the last one I wanted to cover. And that's something that I call growth opportunities. I've heard other people call it growth opportunities, but I don't think that's a universal name for this. Now, this is the only method I know of where you can try and do predictive behavior on jobs in the hidden job market. Okay. The problem with the hidden job market is that the jobs are hidden. You don't know if they're there or not. Like if you contact a certain manager at a certain company, you don't know if they are thinking of hiring somebody. You don't work for that company. You don't have a sort of, view into it to see what people are doing there, right? Maybe business is terrible, or maybe business is booming and they're going to expand very soon. Right? You have no way of determining this. Well, growth opportunities is one way of doing a predictive vision into a company to see if they have a likelihood of having jobs in the hidden job market. Okay. Now, what this is you're going to be going on the internet. You're going to be going to Google, and looking and using Google Alerts. If you've never used Google Alerts, this is a very real thing. It's a feature Google offers. It basically says it's going to scan, like think of it as scanning the news, okay? If something pops up in the news, maybe mention of a certain company or a certain type of activity, right? Like for example, what you could do is you could go on Google Alerts and you could create an alert for anything that happens in your hometown. Say like a shooting or something. There's been, you scan the crime thing and you say, I want to have a notification whenever there's a shooting in my hometown, right? So you could set up a Google alert, the name of your town and, the word shooting and then what it will do is it'll send you an email the moment that, there's an article, bam, new article, bam. It's just as of a minute ago, there's a shooting in this town. It sends you the link for it. Okay. Or you could say, I want like an alert once a week for containing everything that happened that week. Okay. So this is a real function. Not too many people know about it. It's called Google Alerts. You can look it up. And what you're going to be doing is instead of looking for a shooting in your hometown, you're going to be looking for any instance of a new company coming to town, setting up shop, opening a branch office, expanding, perhaps doing an acquisition of another company, things like this, okay? And the idea is that anytime you see a company doing really well, they're coming to your town, they're starting up a new office, they're expanding, they're probably going to be needing people, right? That's probably not too far off that they're going to be hiring a bunch of people, okay? So if you have these Google Alerts set up so that they're passively sort of looking for all that stuff, and then they're sending to you any news of these that are happening, what you can then do is you can contact that company. And there's more details. This is why, it's more advanced because there's a bit more details. Like, okay, the question is, who do you contact? Well, usually there's the name of the person in the article, the spokesperson, or that you could find out the manager or the executive in charge of that division or something. Okay. You can connect with them on LinkedIn, contact them over LinkedIn, and basically give them your message. Hi, I'm here. I'm an expert at this. I solved this problem. I'd love to work at your company. I hear you're doing this. If ever you're looking for someone that has what I have, let me know because I'd very much like to work for you and I think I can help you. Also, I'm an expert at, things in my own town. So if you're looking for someone to sort of show you around and, that knows the local geographic region or something, I can maybe help you there. There's all kinds of ways that could go, but that's a growth opportunity. Basically, it's an advanced way of finding targets to try and tap the hidden job market. These are places that the likelihood of them having hidden jobs is much higher. So that's a growth opportunity. Okay, so we've covered several. As I said, we've covered today 3 options in the posted job market. We've covered internet jobs. We've covered recruitment companies, so recruiting, whether it's executive recruiting or staffing. We've covered job fairs. And then in the hidden job market, we've talked about networking. We've talked about temp jobs. We've talked about volunteering. Okay. And then some of the more advanced stuff, we've talked about informational interviews. We've talked about applying in person. We've talked about growth opportunities. So there's quite a few channels. Some of these are more advanced, but some of these are pretty accessible, like networking. That's probably the biggest. If you're going to choose one channel to go over that has the highest chance of success, if it were me, generally speaking, I would do networking. Because very simple. You don't have to talk to a single person on the phone. You don't have to leave your house. You can do this over social networking, over LinkedIn. You can send your message to over 1,000 people easily. And these are people that hopefully some of them, them, and they tend to produce high quality jobs. You tend to get a job opportunity where you have no competition and you're a perfect fit for. And this is not your opinion. This is the hiring manager's opinion. If they respond to your pitch and they say, yeah, we should talk. I might have something for you. It's usually because you look like you're a very good fit right? So I would do that one. Now, prerequisites for doing these. You have to have a decent resume. Okay, you have to have a resume. So do a resume. Okay, do a good resume. I've done videos on some of the questions about resumes, like do you have to tailor it for every job or not? Okay, so watch some of those. Business cards. I highly recommend getting business cards for like literally $15 or $10 US, 10 American dollars, the equivalent value. You can get yourself like a stack of business cards, 500 business cards, glossy, well done, look professional. And they basically have your name and contact information, but they have your tagline on it. So once again, we're using engineer as an example. They would say your name, professional engineer specializing in this, your picture, and your contact information. And then whenever you meet someone, whenever you talk to someone in person, you give them a business card. Then they know exactly who they talk to and they have it if ever they want to follow up. And that's very handy to have. LinkedIn profile. You have to have a good LinkedIn profile. I've done videos on how to set up a LinkedIn profile to do this kind of activity. Okay, anybody can set up a LinkedIn profile, but if you're using LinkedIn to do networking, to do informational interviews, to do growth opportunities, you need to do it a certain way. There's a certain protocol. There's certain things that you want to make sure you do say, certain things you want to make sure you're not saying, because they could be interpreted as red flags. Okay. And then the psychology, finally, to end off, the psychology of this is, I would say, do more than one channel at a time. Okay, so you could maybe do 2, possibly 3 at the same time. So if you're applying for jobs on the internet, you could maybe do that. I wouldn't recommend that for most people, but it's probably the easiest thing to do. So you could probably do that. But I would make sure you do networking, and then possibly investigate one other channel, like volunteering or applying in person, or maybe informational interviews, something like that. Don't just do one thing. Have like at least a couple of different channels you're pursuing at the same time for maximum chance of success. Okay? And in the meantime, to do any of this stuff, work on your social skills. Social skills are very important. The ability to have a conversation with somebody. Not rocket science, but just a few things you need to do. Okay? Work on your interpersonal skills and charisma. Okay? Actually, a lot simpler than most people think. Just be very polite, smile, look people in the eye. Might take a bit of getting used to if you're not used to doing that. Best thing is practice makes perfect. So the more of this you work on, the better you'll be. It's really not that hard. A lot of people can master this stuff. If you can take great technical skills and tack on some pretty decent social skills, that's really powerful. A lot of people have technical skills and a lot of people have social skills, but having both, that usually means good employee. And as long as your decision-making abilities aren't out to lunch, you'll probably be a really good employee. So remember, you can do this. You got plenty of options. If you're looking to get a job or to make a career move, this is totally doable. It's easy. I wish you the best of luck. Do research. I have 2 YouTube channels full of videos on what to do and some ideas. Okay, and practice makes perfect, and you'll be okay. So thank you very much. Didn't really get any questions today in the chat, but that's okay. It's a long weekend, and as I say, people I'm sure are not thinking of job search in the middle of a long weekend typically. So thank you very much for your attention. I wish everybody nothing but the best. Subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my main channel, The Company's Expert, and I hope you guys have a great week. And I will see you in the future. Thanks very much and take care.